Good to see you again. Some similar face, some new faces here. Welcome. And this, I believe, this is the most attended event, I believe, so far. And good to see you and welcome. And thank you, Koda and Al, for hosting us today here. And yeah, I'd like to introduce Snehal. We are the Bay Area TPM Trail leads. Snehal is EPM at Apple, and I'm lead TPM. So a couple of updates from our trails around the globe, I can say. So in the last 12 months, we have hosted 22 events and more than 1,000 people attended, not registered, attended. Yeah, that's a good number.
And I mean, we have these chapters. I mean, just speaking of Bay Area, like the Bay Area chapter, we have had 6 events last year. We kicked it off. And this is the first event. So I want to thank everybody who's here and taking out the time to be here. So really happy and seeing some familiar faces. But yeah.
And again, from the TPM trails, we now have the Canada chapter alive. They already have their event ongoing. And yeah, now we are 6 chapters globally: India, Canada, Europe, New York, Seattle, and Bay Area. We are growing.
Yeah.
And another update. So we started late maybe this year, but we are really moving fast. March 27, we will host another event at GitHub office San Francisco. And the topic is ethical AI and hope with the cross-section of TPM role.
Yep. What happened to the image? I don't know. All right, so get in touch. So I keep getting questions. How do we know about these events? So get on LinkedIn and then follow the TPM trails. So you will get to know more of these events. And then the Slack image is not, I don't know what happened. But there is a Slack channel for all the TPM, the entire community. Join us there. We'll send the QR code. So if you're not on the channel, get yourselves. There's a lot of interesting chatter about anything, like any topic, and people are there supporting each other.
So first of all, how many of you did not hear our Slack channel?
Yeah, thank you, Harman.
Okay, just one person. So that, I mean, good, because during last summit, we realized that actually we were not known as we think as we were. So we try to, market or introduce us more as much as we can. Yeah, Al, a couple of words from Coda.
Yeah, and I want to thank Al and the Coda for, sponsoring this with the space. And yeah, over to you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Al Chen. I'm a solutions architect at Coda. I basically build templates on the platform all day, all night. And I help run the TPM meetups in New York, where I'm based. And our last meetup in New York, I think we had 50 people, and I thought this was the most we'll ever have. But you guys have just broke that record. So this is pretty awesome to see. Just continues to grow every month, every quarter. So it's really exciting to see. I think the final number of RSVPs for this meetup was over 140 people. Obviously, there's not 140 here, but still a record number for TPM Trails, for Coda. So really excited for you to be here. How many of you went to the TPM Summit hosted by TP Events last year? So most of you. Okay, so you probably saw Coda was one of the main sponsors. You probably know about the products. I'm not going to walk too much about the product right now. I'm just going to talk you some big updates that you may not have heard. So one template I've been working on with a TPM who has been rolling this out for their engineering organization of 200 engineers. Originally, this was done in Google Sheets, where they wanted to have their product leadership, their engineering leadership, to be able to tweak how much effort, person months, is spent on different initiatives within the company. In the Google Sheet, it was literally just like entering, I want to spend 20% on big bets, 30% on customer initiatives, another 20% for buffer, just list going down the line. There's no kind of scientific way to rebalance how much capacity to spend on these different initiatives. And so we worked together on this template that I built, and I want to show you a quick video walking through just 30, 45 seconds of what it looks like, which might be interesting to you. If you want to learn more, feel free to talk to me afterwards. The allocation of percentage, basically they want to be able to have all these different initiatives with different allocation percentages on how much time, how many person months they wanted to spend on that given initiative. And so the idea here is that a product leader, engineering leader could come in here and tweak these sliders, and then the required capacity and available capacity would dynamically change. So based on how engineers were assigned to different teams and projects, all this updates in real time using just tables and formulas and the basic building blocks of Coda. And these tables here basically drive this entire application. So instead of having people manually change numbers in a Google Sheet, having to copy the Google Sheet and data constantly being stale, this template basically allowed that person to save some time and having something that could be shared with leadership to change how much time to spend on different initiatives. So the responsibility of how much time do we spend on big bets versus customers versus AI was all handled through this template. The other big news is about a month and a half ago, Coda was actually acquired by Grammarly. And I'm not sure if any of the Grammarly TPMs are here, but they were excited to join this meetup and the community. And now we're part of a much bigger strategic initiative to be the AI productivity platform for apps and agents. Not exactly sure what it's going to look like, but here's a teaser. And I think you're one of the first crowds to see this, but this is what this could potentially look like within this Grammarly Coda world. Imagine you're writing a PRD or someone product leader is writing a PRD and you're writing a bunch of text and you're trying to think about the number of bugs or issues are coming from your Jira project. Instead of having to switch to Jira, counting the number of issues or pulling up some spreadsheet, you can just put in a placeholder and the Grammarly Chrome extension or the app would smartly suggest, just like it suggests spelling and grammar updates, what you're trying to refer to in terms of the context of what you're writing. So imagine seeing this kind of Grammarly pop up across all of your internal business data. So that's kind of something that we're working on that's going to hopefully change how people are writing and integrating their different data sources together. So that's all I have. I want to now pass it off to the panel, which I think, Oskan, you're going to introduce. So thank you so much.
Before moving to the panel, I also would like to mention that we are trying a new format within our events, a workshop. So this is going to be our first workshop. Please give us your feedback, your recommendations, your advice and opinion so that we can improve ourselves. So yeah, thank you. And I'd like to introduce Jitendra. He's AI ML TPM at Netflix. And also Sunil, he's Korea TPM at LinkedIn. A big welcome. All right, thanks for coming after a busy workday and one-on-ones, I assume. So yeah, without further ado, we have some questions, of course. So I'd like to start with you first, Sunil. Can you please tell us about your background?
Okay, I started as a software engineer, very specifically backend engineer. Then I came to US as a tech lead, worked on banks, Citibank and State Street banks. I spent like 17 years in investment banking. Then I wanted to move to AI. So I did some data science as well as machine learning course. In fact, we did it together. And then we moved on to, he also joined LinkedIn and I also joined LinkedIn at the same time. So I've been working with LinkedIn for the last 6 years now. Yeah.
Cool. And Jitendra, you too, can you please also mention a little bit about your background, please?
Yeah, so pretty much similar to like I worked with Sunil for almost like 15 years. I started as a data engineer, then I moved into more data analytics and become a TPM for data integration, data analytics space. Then wanted to get into AI and product space. So that's where we did some online courses, build the skills, and then move into AI space. It's been six and a half, 7 years working in the data science AI space at LinkedIn, and then now I'm at Netflix.
Nice. So Jitan, let's continue with you. What are the biggest challenges in AI program execution, and how do you mitigate them?
Okay, so I'll speak like in very generic terms in terms of my experience at LinkedIn and Netflix, two different companies, two different products, but challenges are similar. So you can for TPMs, the biggest challenge in the execution of AI program is the speed, how the market is changing, how the AI landscape is changing, how we see that new model coming every day. For example, if you are running a program building a fine tuning on, let's say, ChatGPT or Llama, and DeepSeek comes in and all of your plan goes in trash and you need to like go back to whiteboard and start again. And then another month, another model comes and you need to start again. So the speed, the way the landscape is changing is very fast, and it comes as a pressure on the program to change react in the same way. So the speed is very biggest challenge where you need to be agile and all. Second, I would say is the evaluation criteria. So every step you do need a good evaluation, whether you do offline evaluation or online A/B testing on any AI program. Evaluation becomes challenging because you want to switch from A model to B model, and you need to have a good evaluation. You cannot go back. These are very costly steps for company, and evaluation need to be very perfect. So as a TPM, you need to have deep understanding of evaluation criteria, how you prioritize, how you take trade-offs between the options. And the last, I would say, like especially for TPM, is the ambiguity of the AI space. You might be asking your engineers, hey, give me the milestones, or give me the task you want to do, or give me the dates. They also don't know. They have not figured it out. And the DeepSeek is launched only like a month back, and they are trying to fine tune DeepSeek, and they might hit a wall, and they need to go and see the literature to find a solution. So the ambiguity is very high, and you always need to like work with the ambiguity. You cannot have a perfect plan. You cannot have a perfect timelines laid out. You cannot have perfect dependencies, perfect risk. So with that ambiguity, you need to always execute. So I would say like this is the top level challenge you face in execution.
These are great points, Jitan. Thank you so much. So Sunil, how do or should TPMs treat AI program planning versus traditional software programs?
Okay, very interesting question. I mean, I can list like, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes is not enough, but 30 points I can list. Hey, this is the difference how you approach as a TPM when you are managing an AI program. But maybe the top two I would pick is one, domain expertise. You need to understand exactly what is the technology, right? What is the AI tech, which I mean, I can give an example. For example, even as a senior manager, I manage programs. So last week, my manager asked me to lead a program, and it was based on some research papers. So one thing which I did was like first go and understand what is written in that research paper. So there were two technologies which we are trying, something called generative recommending, and there is a Transact. There's two research paper, one from Meta and there is one from Pinterest. So I just went and spent a lot of time reading that. Once I understood what actually they did, the Pinterest, what Pinterest did and what Meta did with those two technologies, the conversation with my engineering manager become very productive. Like for example, today I had like a 1 hour very productive discussion with my eng manager. And the thing what he told me was like, hey, I mean, glad that you're there as a TPM because this kind of technical conversation I cannot have. So that's the thing which you should be doing when you're actually doing planning. One thing also which came out was when I'm reading that paper, there were experience from the Pinterest group as well as the Meta group, and I asked the right questions like, hey, these are the risks which is listed in that paper. How are we going to tackle it? Like, what's the plan? So we did not even kick off the program, but we are talking about risk now. So that's one thing, like domain expertise. If you do not have that background, at least you should do a lot of homework on that. So I invest a lot of time on learning that technology. And in fact, I manage a team as well. I lead the core AI TPM team at LinkedIn. So I tell my team to spend at least 10% of their time, which is like 4 hours per week, investing on reading more in the tech world. So that's one. Number two is be very agile, right? Like what Jiten said, you cannot have a very clear program plan on day one saying, hey, we are going to launch this on so and so date. That's not how it happens. In fact, we were struggling for 1 week to create what should be the goal for this program. And what we came up was like, hey, within 6 weeks, we're gonna run an experiment and maybe launch to 1% of LinkedIn members and see how it is gonna work out. And then maybe try the other technology and see whether that is doing well or this is doing well. And then based on that, we will derive the program, right? So that's the flexibility you need to have. I think these are the two main when you are kicking off a AI program.
Yeah, it sounds good, but still I think, need to bear in mind the flexibility, right? Because as Jiten mentioned,
Yeah.
the models are changing all the day. I mean, every month maybe.
Yep.
I mean, one, as you mentioned, a group A may work today, and tomorrow may not work. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be very flexible.
So Jitendra, another question for you. And what role do TPMs play with regards to managing the compute infra or GPUs required for AI programs? This is the topic I think you love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure like a lot of people also love. I mean, I'm noticing this recently, last 6 months or a year, that a lot of companies has dedicated TPM role for GPU management. You will see like TPM compute. Look at OpenAI, any company like they're hiring dedicated TPM to manage compute. So managing compute is not just the operational work. What managing CPU or any other compute resources. GPU is like a little bit different. So you can think in this way that GPU is a fuel where your entire AI work stream or engine will run in the company. And you as a TPM will face challenge every single day. Like I can give example, today morning, I had 3 hours free time to do my focus work, but I was pulled into a GPU fire and then my 3 hour went away there. And I realized that fire was not worth it. It was just the emotion of engineers driving that, hey, I need the GPU right now. And he gave me a date of like whatever it is. So I'm not going in detail, but the point is that as a TPM, you need to have the technical skill as well as operational skills in balance when managing GPU. You need to do the forecasting, planning, and like how you acquire GPU, how you distribute GPU, what is the operational aspect of it, working with finance team, working with like your engineering AI teams and all. Also, you need to understand the technicality of GPUs, like how GPU work in different use cases. I can give example that an engineer came to me saying that I need 80 GPU for this particular project for the quarter. His manager says approved, budget is approved, everything good. When I started double clicking, what kind of model is this? What kind of GPU you want? How long you want? What kind of job is this? We came up that he only need 2 GPU. And just because his manager has a deep pocket, he said he wanted 80 and I could use those GPU for something else. So it's just that you need to have those deeper understanding of the workloads, the tech stack, and the GPU itself. You can, as a TPM, you can do more justice to the company because companies are investing billions and billions into the GPU. And it's not just that GPU will have everything in success. Like you having GPU is not a guarantee of success. As I mentioned, there is a lot of experimentation required. So GPU could be the first step, but then you need to build. I also published a detailed blog post on this in the past that you need to start with having the right capacity. Then you need to start with right optimization. Then you need to start with like more fine tuning of your workflow so that you use GPU efficiently. And then you start with developer education, like you educate them in the right way that what is the right GPU for you. And then all these 4 joint backs into your GPU planning when you do quarterly or annual planning, whatever it is. So this full cycle, you need to have all those steps of the cycle in place, and then you need to keep pushing it in the right direction so that you can bring the optimization. So I'll summarize that managing GPU is all about optimization. How can you optimize the acquiring GPU? How can you optimize using GPU? How can you optimize the workload on the GPU? TPM play a very important role because no engineer want to do this kind of optimization specific work. They can optimize their workload, but they cannot optimize the entire company's workload. So the TPM plays a bigger and bigger role, and that's why these companies are hiring specialized TPMs in the compute area.
So I believe in this case, the more domain knowledge you have, the better, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to be a hardware expert to manage GPU, but you need to have domain knowledge of AI models, the basic hardware information, how those models use GPU, what is the critical path, because often it's like GPU is always in the critical path for every program and project. So your prioritization skills, your negotiation skills all comes in play with the domain knowledge required for the AI.
See, well, great answer. Thank you so much. And Sunil, one final question for you before we move to career specific questions.
Sure.
So what role do TPMs play with regards to responsible AI?
Okay, that's a loaded question. I think you have a separate session next time, right?
Hopefully at the end of month. Yeah.
Okay, I think first of all, LinkedIn takes trust very seriously. So responsible AI is not just RAI, but privacy is there. Trust is also there. So we actually look at three dimensions. What we do at LinkedIn is because of all these large language models, Llama, ChatGPT, everybody wants to, launch a product based on this, but they don't think about what is the implications, because we are handling, LinkedIn member data. So we have to be very careful about it. So what we do at LinkedIn is we have a specific, red teaming effort which goes before any product launches. So one critical role that TPM plays is understanding what that red teaming effort looks like. There is a moderation team which they have run an automatic model just to, play with some fake data to understand like, hey, whether this model is causing any harm or it is creating any diversity even for jobs, right? Like whether it is sending emails to more males versus more females, right? Like, so it looks at all these kind of dimensions and give you a score, right? And there is a threshold, and clearly you have to pass the threshold. Otherwise, you're actually not going to pass the test, and then you're not going to go to the production. So TPM actually plays a role both from the product side as well as from my team, like Core AI, who actually focuses on the Core AI, the REI piece. And there is a clear process which takes like 2 weeks to determine, hey, where is your model? Is it under threshold or below threshold? Above threshold. And what are the steps which we need to do to mitigate those kind of risk? Yeah.
And these sounds really good, by the way. Yep. Thank you so much. And yeah, a couple of more questions for both of you. How do you see the role of TPMs evolving in AI-driven organizations?
So as I mentioned, like we'll see more specialized TPM role coming frequently. I've noticed this pattern. Compute specific TPM roles are getting more traction now. There'll be more like responsible AI TPM sort of role will also come. So this specialized TPM role, like which is not looking like, okay, you're a TPM, you can do any program versus you're a TPM, you can do a AI program or a type of AI program specifically. So the specialized skill is required, and that's why like getting the domain knowledge, getting some sort of understanding of that area is very important. Like for example, you asked the question of compute and RAI. I have seen the example where we were having a budget of 20 million to build a model. We spent 20 million, we built a model and it failed because it did not pass the RAI criteria. And we did not think that in. So you need to have RAI knowledge, you need to have compute knowledge, you need to have all basic knowledge. But ultimately, like this role will shape into more like specialized TPM role where you can come with a combination of process, domain knowledge, and like TPM magic, you can have the program deliver basically.
So just add to that, so domain knowledge is must have. So maybe one thing which, the one popular question which always comes is like, hey, is AI going to replace the TPM?
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I believe no.
So we kicked off a program last year just to do that. Like maybe let's create an agent, a TPM agent, and then 3 TPMs went into the room and we killed the project. Because we asked the right questions. So you need to know, right? Like what is the ROI, right? Like they were thinking about productivity. Then I said like, oh, what is the money you're saving by doing this versus going and launching a product like a hiring agent, right? What I am saying is like embrace the AI right now. What's happening? Like don't deny it. Like make sure that like you kind of update yourself to the technology which is happening, and that will help you going forward.
Okay, yeah, domain knowledge and embracing AI and also deep diving. This is my understanding, right?
Correct.
And so last question again for both of you. What skills or experiences should TPMs develop to be successful in AI program management? We kind of mentioned that, but maybe to wrap up.
I don't think there is any checklist, right? It's growing so fast. It depends on your aspiration as well, what you want to do. Like what we tried out, I can just give an example, maybe a shameless plug as well. When I started trying to learn more about technology on the AI side, one interesting thing which I found was, hey, I love reading engineering blogs, right? And I also read research paper, which really, to be very honest, I hope there is no PhD folks in this room, but I don't like it. because it's so long. And then what we did was we came up with this idea of like, hey, why not convert this into a blog post, right? Like not blog post, like a podcast, right? Then we thought, okay, maybe let's do it as a conversational rather than just like how you're talking now. So let's do it as that. And then we started using Notebook LLM to, do some kind of a conversion. And then I started using for my team, right? Like we used to have a lot of deep dives and some research papers, like a lot of research paper get cited. And then we use it for my team to learn about the technology. And then we started, okay, let's not write this into a real project itself now, or we call it as like a blog bites, and there is something called paper bites. Those are two channels which we are hosting in Spotify right now. Those are like all engineering blogs, a more conversational, 15 minutes conversation which is happening.
Nice. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then research paper, and it's more interesting, right? Like, and what we thought, like, oh, maybe we will start doing it. Then we thought like, okay, maybe fine tune our voice itself, and then there's a AI which is actually doing the podcast. So it takes us like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to create podcast and upload it in Spotify. That's how we are evolving every day with AI.
I think like the question like what skill TPM need to build to get into this is like domain knowledge. Definitely we spoke about. I will also speak like more on the agility what we can bring. TPM don't need to be like stick on the way of doing things. That there has to be a project plan. There has to be a milestone roadmap. I am running a program. It's already 6 months and we don't have a roadmap yet, and that's fine. Like as long you give me a monthly,
That's fine. The burning, burning housing.
I mean, as long you give a monthly checkpoints that we are going in good direction, as long you have a set up a good evaluation criteria, as long as the team is like feeling motivated to hit those checkpoints and go in the direction, that's good enough. I mean, eventually we want to have, so any AI program start from like more like a research stage, then it goes into more like a engineering stage. In the research stage, TPM need to embrace like agility and like be alive with your engineering partners. So those skills are very important, which most TPM has because we use on the program every day. And the domain knowledge. And once you go in engineering, then you brings all the other like metrics, and those things are very important. You need to be very, very, I would say, obsessed with the metrics on what you're setting for the program, whether it's a goal metric or some other metric, signpost, guardrail, whatever metrics you're setting up. So TPM need to have those like strong skills around metric to be successful on the AI programs.
Yeah. So maybe we can have one or two questions if you have from the audience. All right. One question only.
So, I mean, I luckily have both experience because LinkedIn is on-prem and Netflix is on cloud. They use AWS. So they have two different set of challenges. On-prem, it takes time to get GPU because you need to start from the like really hardware to put into data centers. It's like 6 months, the moment you sign the contract, it's 6 months, it lands in your data center. But once it lands data center, you have full control. You can decide how to allocate, who to allocate, you can move it. You have all the metrics available like GPU utilization, temperature, all those things you can check, and you can make right decision that okay, X team is not using efficiently, let me do sharing. All those like mechanism you can establish. On cloud is readily available. You can ask today and you can get it tomorrow. But then it comes with like certain like you can have like auto scale. You can set like I need 100 GPU, but I might need 200 if required. So give me the auto scale capability. Those features on cloud, but cloud is like charge every year. So you'll be paying that every year amount like for 10 years versus acquiring it once from NVIDIA and then putting in the data center and they have your team manage it. So there are different challenges from the finance budget point of view, but for engineers, it's easy if it is like, if your team is matured using cloud for many years, then cloud is very easy because it becomes seamless. You don't need to build the tools to get those metrics. Versus on-prem, you need to build all the tools, all the metrics, all have to be built from scratch. There are products available in the market which you can apply on top of it, but then it becomes like you're building a full stack of managing that hardware. What you have is totally different from CPU. So its reusability is very less. So they have different set of challenges on both sides. Netflix is everything on AWS. They don't have on-prem. Yeah.
Whereas LinkedIn is 50-50. Not 50-50, 70-30, I guess. On-prem versus Azure.
Which one is 70?
On-prem. Yeah.
Right, one last question.
I'm with Microsoft and we work very closely on Copilot. So, a question that I have for this group is how do you measure accuracy of AI? The reason I'm asking you this question is because first the answer was 0, 1, right? But with LLM, there are many right answers. And when we go to customers, they're like, okay, I tried 10 times. If you give me 3 out of 10 times wrong answer, I'm not going to get back to it. So the measurement of accuracy of AI has become very abstract. So I'm just curious about how you look at it in your organizations. Thank you.
I think at LinkedIn, especially my team, we have a separate team who's focusing on evaluation. A couple of ways we are doing it. One, there's a human evaluation. They look at like different dimensions. One could be like coherence, and one could be hallucination, something like that. It's a very manual effort, so obviously only you can put a number of people to do that. So you can only take and we also have a project going on called auto evaluation. So you're using LLM as a judge to evaluate the results as well. So those are a couple of ways which we are trying it, but I'm not going to say that like we solved it. It's still in the process. There are only few companies who have actually done that. I guess Nvidia was one, I think, who did that. I think they are doing a pretty good job. They have not open sourced it. If they have done it, then we could have taken that as well.
So I can add to this, like as I mentioned, that one of the biggest challenge we face is evaluation. That's like how you evaluate the performance of this. Every company has an online evaluation where they do A/B tests with user, because ultimate truth is how user react to this, whether you're getting the metrics or not. But there are hundreds of different offline evaluation can be done, and there are like metrics you need to first evaluate. You need to build data sets, and the data sets will tell you whether this model is good on this data set or not. For example, you are building an LLM for Q&A, like customers Q&A. So you have a historical data set of question answer. You know this answer is good, this answer is bad. They are labels. So and then the human in loop comes in picture, where you like employ those humans to label those question answer. And this becomes like golden data set where you evaluate your model and say, okay, if I'm able to perform, this model is performing good on the historical, we assume it will perform future also, and that's even offline evaluation. And you keep updating those data sets. I can tell, like, for example, any LLM on offline evaluation need to have at least 20, 30 such metrics. We call some of them like a true north, which you need to go in the direction. There are some signposts which will tell you you are going in the right direction somewhere. And then there are guardrail, like language understanding is a guardrail. Like if Llama is released with a language understanding, they have a benchmark. You are fine tuning Llama. You don't want to break that benchmark and forget all those language understanding what is built. But if you are doing for text, you don't want to have this perfect in the math or chemistry benchmark. So those kind of metrics teams and companies build offline evaluation and then mix with the online evaluation, how the customer reacts to those models.
Right, thank you so much, Sunil and Jitendra, for coming today and speaking with us today. And thank you everyone for attending our panel. So next session is the workshop, and I'd like to invite Snehan to talk about our workshop. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to be cognizant of the time. It's 6:11. The initial plan was to, form groups, have some scenarios, and cover that. But I think I don't want to keep you here for too long. So what we're going to do is just switch a little bit. We're going to cover like max 3 scenarios, and then I'm going to give like 5 minutes for you to think about how do you solve that. And then we have all the experts here who can kind of approach, like share approaches, or you could learn from each other. All set for it? Or are you guys sleeping? Okay. All right, so I'm going to use this as a case study. So let's take a fintech company develops an AI-powered fraud detection system to prevent fraudulent transactions in real time. It performs well in the research setting, but major challenges arise when you actually deploy it in prod. So I'm going to hold on for here, pause a moment, keep the scenario in mind, and now you have learned so much about it from Sunil and Jitender. Our first scenario is going to be what we see in prod is there are a lot of false positives. And what's happening is the legitimate transactions are being blocked. So engineers argue that more fine tuning is needed, while the leadership is like, get this fixed as soon as possible, which is, yes, everybody's aware. So what I would like to do is, I want you to think about, put your TPM hat and say, how do I approach this problem? align with my partners to come up with a plan without negatively impacting because the information or it's out in prod. So I'm going to give 5 minutes for you to think about it, and then we'll look into this solution. Cool? Okay. Yeah, you could discuss, you could move around, whatever, talk
Let's
about
form
it.
groups, okay?
Yeah,
And then
yeah. Or you could just talk to each other. Yeah, that's fine too. All right. I know this can go on for the whole night, but we need to pause. So I'm sure you guys had great conversations. You can continue, but any volunteers who would like to share your thoughts based on your conversations? Come on in. Yeah, you can come up here. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, I was volunteered by our team. So I think our discussion was really, wide and deep both. So I'd like to point out this is really under the disguise of, the AI specific struggle, but we concluded it's more of a very typical struggle most of companies will have. It's a product. The leadership wants velocity of, just promote it to the customers. At the same time, engineers or the scientists wants to ensure the quality. So it's more of the velocity versus quality. So once we get to that kind of core struggle, we have a way to bring our familiar skill sets to understand it and to help resolve the issue, right? So one is to see what the risks can be. It can be categorized to different customers like banks as a high risk, a low risk tolerance, high risk sensitivity to some customers, say service providers like restaurants or whatever. So we can have a slow dial up to some of the lower risk, the higher risk tolerant customers first as the first stage. Then we meet the leadership's demand of velocity as well as collecting some real world data, and engineers will have a peace of mind to at least improve while deploying it. Another way to think about it is to to engage with different stakeholders. Different stakeholders have different backgrounds. Some are very technical, some are not. We need to speak different languages to them to communicate the challenges. Some may not even realize what the very high fraud, causing the legitimate transactions to be blocked. They can't understand what is the root cause of that. So we need to explain them clearly. So the leadership may more understand the risk, or not the risk, the quality isn't high enough. So they may be a little bit loose on the timeline as well, right? In the same time, we can communicate to the engineers and the scientists about the leadership's demand in a way the engineers can understand. Without the real world data, all of our work will be just in a sandbox, right? A lot of the models we build could be just without verification in the real world. So engineers do need to understand that we do need real world data, and the sooner we get that feedback, maybe the sooner we can improve our models. So that's kind of another way to think about it. Thank you.
No, thank you. And so overall, you're saying like we take the data, we share it with leadership, we prioritize like the high risk customers and low risk, and then kind of approach it that way, keeping both the parties aligned in terms of cool. Yeah, thanks. All right, Jitendra, Sunil. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Vijay Gupta. I'm a TPM lead for payment risk and identity at Uber. So our group, yes. So our group went very similar to what you guys said. First, looking at the root cause. So it looks like the data that we tested the model with was not a good replication of what's happening in production. So the test data was not good representative data as compared to what we are seeing in production. But as we know, fraud models evolve very fast. Like the way fraud happens, that's a fast moving target. You can train your model against the existing fraud modalities, but new kind of fraud modalities can emerge within weeks, within days sometime. So it's a combination of those two is what we are thinking. But from leadership perspective, we need to understand why they are in the rush to launch this. Are they hoping to contain the fraud rate? And then what was the fraud rate before rolling out this model? What kind of fraud losses, because whether it's a, let's say, payment related fraud, we were not able to collect on the payment, or it's like chargebacks were happening. So what was the motivation to sort of put this model out versus what will happen if we have false positive? How does it impact our revenue or gross booking or other metric that will get negatively impact? So collecting those type of data point, what's the pros, what's the con, and how do they stack against each other is one side of the equation. So having understanding of the root cause that might be contributing, that defines what else is needed to get to a level where we can make this perfect. Whether it's allowing more maybe production traffic to flow through staging, do some shadow testing, or have a very small rollout like the other you were saying, 1% or 5% rollout to learn from production data, and then just making the objective data-based recommendation to leadership that this is the likely impact. And if this has a brand or customer experience impact, like you all might have heard about the United Health releasing their model where they were denying claims left and right. So those could spiral into brand and other issues. So just putting all of this thing in perspective, telling leadership the pros and cons, and presenting them the scenarios like, if you allow us X amount of more time, and what is the definition of what is a good definition of done, whether this is the precision or recall level or whatever is the metric, sort of using that as a way to say that we need to get there before we feel comfortable launching it.
Thank you. Yep. One more. Anybody else? Any other thoughts you want to share? Yes. Noah. Please tell your name so that everybody knows you as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Veena. Really speaking on behalf of Divya and Sushma here. We all have a history with Microsoft, so our answers are highly biased there. I think a three-pronged approach here. First of all, it's super clear that leadership do not want to tarnish customer brand, right? So perform a cost benefit analysis. What benefit is AI bringing to these customers? Some kind of cost optimization, or cost optimization essentially, right? And increased revenue, right? Like by blocking less of the fraudulent transactions. So after cost benefit analysis, we will try to localize the failures, the false positives. I think we talked about, I think velocity versus quality. Time to market is important, but identify if specific geographies, specific bank transactions, what are those one or two issues that are causing these false positives that can be fixed and launched. And third is run previews. Generally in Microsoft, we run things like private previews where we take it to a few customers, get their confidence, and then move, expand. So land and expand. So what this also provides us with is, I think the other group touched upon it, is real world data. So get customers test data in your, test clusters and see what's working, what's not working from a real world perspective. So I think these are the three things. First, cost benefit analysis. Second, localize the problems and, contain your launch to few customers, few less risky use cases as they called out. Thank you.
Look at all of you, like AI ML expert TPMs already. So this is great. I mean, as you hear, different approaches, all make sense, get the right data. Anything you want to add to this based on what the team has thought?
I think all are great answers, but if I was a TPM assigned to this job, then what I would have done is created a war room and tell my folks that, hey, unless we get out of this and solve this problem, we are not going to get out of this war room. So, I mean, all great answers, but your customer is going through a lot of problem. I think we need to fix that first. So I think war room is the way. That's my perspective.
Very yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. It's 6:30. I had 6 scenarios. Probably I was too ambitious to cover all. You, oh, to the back. Yeah. So I'm going to skip because I know everybody's hungry. So pizza is here, but I can share this. There were quite a few. There was one more I wanted to touch was on roadmap prioritization and one on responsible AI bias. Three interesting topics, but we don't have time. But yeah, I hope this was interesting. This is where you get to think, you learn from each other. That's the community for. And with that, what's on the back?
That's all.
Okay. I thought you had a slide. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you share these scenarios with us?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Anytime.
Slack.
Yeah.
Slack.
Yeah, we had the
Join the
we'll
Slack.
share. Yeah, we'll share the Slack our code. I'll share the scenarios and continue the conversation Slack. But yeah, I hope this was as he said, this was our first attempt on workshop, and I think people are interested. So we'll try and get some ideas, suggestions from you as well. But that's pretty much. We have the next event coming up at GitHub. Stay tuned for that. Follow us on TPM Trails. And again, big thank you to everybody for joining.
One last plea. We will be sending feedback forms, and please fill them out and share your feedback and opinion with us. And yeah, and also share who you would like to see as a speaker, as a panelist, and topic. What topics you'd like to see and learn. Workshop is new. We are learning. Again, please share your feedback. Okay, thank you so much, and
Thank you all. Enjoy.
bon appétit.
Pizza. Yep.